I've decided to buy a luxury car from you, Emma. Truthfully, as a regular person, I don't need such opulence, but my parents are considering a new car, and this one might be perfect for them. Since marrying Anthony, I've noticed a shift in his behavior. He seems more self-absorbed and even envious of the upscale car my parents gave me. Honestly, I'm fed up. My name is Emma, I'm 29 years old, and I met Anthony in college. We've been married for 2 years now. Anthony is quite the socialite, popular, and well-liked, which contrasts sharply with my introverted nature and small circle of close friends. Our relationship began unexpectedly. Initially, our connection grew from shared classes and study groups. His interest took me by surprise, but when he asked me out, I was so thrilled that I immediately accepted. That marked the start of our journey together. I was drawn to Anthony's charm, his laid-back attitude, and his commitment to his studies. He had many friends, including numerous fashionable and attractive women, so it seemed he would have no trouble finding another girlfriend if he chose to. Once, I nervously asked him if he thought I was the one for him. His reaction puzzled me. He looked surprised and questioned why I would ask such a thing. I admit I felt insecure and just wanted to understand why he chose me. After pondering for a moment, he simply said he was comfortable with me. It wasn't the heartfelt answer I hoped for, and before I could respond, he became preoccupied with his phone. Not wanting to argue, I changed the subject and apologized for bringing it up, but the doubts remained. Externally, our relationship seemed to progress smoothly. We graduated, got married, and settled into a condo. I secured a stable job, while Anthony pursued his graduate studies and worked part-time. When I mentioned our engagement to my mom, she was overjoyed, although she confessed that she and my dad had started to wonder when I'd introduce a boyfriend. I felt a bit guilty for not telling them about Anthony sooner, but my mom, understanding my independent streak, was just glad I had someone who cared about me. My parents have always been my role models. Like Anthony and me, they met in college and have upheld a profound love and respect for each other over the years. My dad climbed the corporate ladder, while my mom followed her passion for cooking and eventually taught culinary classes. They've always honored each other's independence and supported their dreams. I am determined to establish a marriage as enriching and supportive as that of my parents, despite having been raised in a financially comfortable family where I learned early on the importance of independence. This core value influenced my decision not to follow in Anthony's footsteps into graduate school. Instead, I aim to forge my path and stand independently. My dream has always been rather straightforward: to create a nurturing family environment like the one I was fortunate enough to experience, complete with a loving marriage and maybe children someday. Though it seems simple, for me, this is a profound goal. Changes began to emerge after Anthony and I started living together. While he was immersed in his graduate studies and managed a part-time job, his financial contributions were minimal. One day, I broached the subject, suggesting it might help if he could allocate more of his income towards our mutual expenses. His response was dismissive. "I do contribute, Emma. Didn't we agree you'd handle the living expenses when we moved in together?" This left me feeling uncomfortable and unsettled. Anthony's dream had always been to become a professor, which explained his dedication to his studies. However, as he pursued his academic ambitions, I felt increasingly like I was bearing the brunt of our financial responsibilities alone. Despite having reassured him that my stable job could cover our finances, his curt retort when I brought it up left me stammering a feeble agreement, unsure how to push back. He sighed heavily. "You wouldn't understand, Emma. Being a graduate student is expensive," he explained, then added as if it were a trivial afterthought, "Oh, and I need $26,000 for a research trip. Can you lend it to me? I'll pay you back." Such requests became more frequent, and the tension in our relationship intensified. Anthony often spent nights out, leaving me alone with meals that went cold and phone calls that remained unanswered. When he returned, his mood was invariably upbeat, and he would suddenly suggest plans or compliment my cooking, making me feel momentarily valued. Each instance of kindness from him gave me fleeting glimpses of the joyful marriage I yearned for, causing me to shy away from addressing our deeper issues. I was acutely aware that something was amiss. Feelings of loneliness and anxiety became my constant companions, caught as I was in a cycle of fleeting happiness and extended periods of isolation. I struggled to share these feelings with anyone, especially my parents, who were outwardly delighted about our marriage. However, they likely sensed that not all was well. After a long absence, I visited them, and my father suggested I stay for dinner. My mother went all out with the meal in a warm gesture of welcome. During dinner, my father mentioned that Aunt Margaret had recently stopped by. "She was asking about you," he said, describing Margaret as spirited, ambitious, and fiercely independent, the very traits that epitomized her. "I'll reach out to her soon, thanks, Dad," I replied, grateful for their gentle encouragement to reconnect with family. As my father shared fond memories of how much Margaret cared for me, he reminisced with a smile about how she often joked that Anthony had whisked me away, even though she had never planned to marry. Margaret had always been more of a mentor than just an aunt to me. I could discuss with her things that were too complex to broach with my parents. She had always understood me deeply and provided support, especially when I was navigating new chapters in my life. I had always been shy about opening up regarding my relationship with Anthony, especially with Margaret. However, a visit to my parents sparked a newfound eagerness to reconnect with her. A few days later, we met at a quaint cafe where Margaret, ever so fashionable, gave me a warm look and some friendly fashion advice. "Marriage is more than a ceremony, Emma," she said, smiling as she sipped her tea. "It's important to feel confident and maintain your appearance. Your outfit says a lot about you, so take care of yourself." I realized I had been neglecting my interests and quickly apologized for losing touch. Margaret, with a chuckle, responded, "That's just like you, Emma. It's fine to be earnest, but your timidity likely stems from not venturing out enough. However, hearing about Anthony made me happy. It seemed like you were finally ready to move forward. We hadn't spent a day just relaxing in such a long time, and the beautiful weather made our outing even more delightful." Settling down on the cafe's sunny terrace, I felt at ease enough to discuss my concerns about my relationship with Margaret. Initially, I thought that even a reserved person like me could make things work with Anthony, but recently, I was beginning to doubt it. Margaret listened without interrupting, her nods showing empathy. When I was done, she softly inquired, "Have you talked about any of this with your parents, Emma?" "No," I admitted. "I hesitated even telling you today. I didn't want to expose my vulnerabilities. I felt I needed to handle this myself to show that I could be independent. If my parents knew, they'd probably insist on me moving back home." Margaret respected my decision to deal with things on my own, but offered comforting words. "If you ever need help, I'm here for you. Just let me know. I'll always support you, Emma, no matter where I am." About a month later, my mom called me nonchalantly. "Whenever you're free, could you drop by? It's nothing urgent." Since I had the next day off, I decided to visit them. As I approached the house, I noticed a new car in the driveway. Excited, I exclaimed, "Is this car new, Dad? Did you just buy it? Maybe I can take it for a spin." My excitement was evident as I admired the new vehicle. With a warm smile, my dad reassured me, "This car is yours, Emma. Use it as you like. It will be useful." My mom chimed in softly, "We remembered you liked this model when we saw it in a TV ad. We thought it would make a perfect gift for you, especially since you've been going through a tough time." Feeling low lately, my parents decided to cheer me up with a surprising gift, a shiny new SUV from a well-known international brand. This thoughtful gesture filled me with an overwhelming sense of support and the freedom to come home whenever things got too tough. Dad had even arranged a parking spot close to my condo to park the SUV. Overwhelmed by their generosity, I laughed in disbelief, finding it hard to grasp the extent of their kindness. Later, as I was driving downtown, I reached into my pocket, pulled out the car keys, and pressed the button. The SUV's lights flashed brightly around me. That's when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "What's with the new car?" Anthony asked. Turning around, I saw my husband, who had been away from home for ages. His unexpected presence rendered me speechless. Anthony looked at the car, a smug grin spreading across his face. "I see, a gift from your parents?" Every time I faced Anthony, I found it hard to speak up, but I was tired of feeling small. "Anthony, don't you care anymore? Do you even care about me?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling with newfound courage. Anthony's response was cruel and dismissive. "Are you just realizing this now? Did you think I loved you all this time? It's ridiculous how hopeful you are." His mocking laughter stung my ears. Something inside me snapped. "Then why did you marry me?" I retorted, louder than intended. Anthony's cold reply was blunt. "Wow, you're going to be that blunt about it? So marrying me was just a means to an end for you, huh? And now you want the car too? It's wasted on you." I was shocked by the harshness of his words. Anthony, unfazed by the pain he caused, added with chilling indifference, "You know we're getting a divorce. Without me, you'll never find another man. Think about it." With those cruel words, he left without a second glance, leaving me feeling both angry and heartbroken. Sitting in the driver's seat, my head throbbed with a headache as I tried to calm myself. Eventually, I reached out to Aunt Margaret for advice. After a few days of reflection, I agreed to the divorce and moved back in with my parents, who welcomed me with open arms. Life felt peaceful again for a while. However, that peace was short-lived. One afternoon, Anthony showed up at my parents' house, accompanied by his parents. They all settled into the living room, and Anthony's father spoke sternly. "We're here to discuss our son's divorce," he began. As the conversation unfolded, I took a firm stand. "If you don't agree to the divorce," I warned Anthony, "I'll use Brian's connections at the university to jeopardize your future. It wouldn't be hard to damage the career of a junior registrar if their daughter files a complaint." Anthony, who seemed to care more now, was taken aback by my assertive approach. He felt my tactics were aggressive and intimidating. His father argued vehemently, "We could easily contest the divorce. Emma, beneath her simple appearance, is manipulative and greedy." Poor Anthony. I heard she even paid him to stay away. She must have entertained other men. We should take this to family court and claim Anthony was coerced into this divorce. But if Emma were to make a genuine apology, maybe things could be different. When Aunt Margaret suggested that giving up the SUV might help smooth things over, Anthony and his parents listened quietly, absorbing his father's protests. Just then, the doorbell rang and my mom answered it. Aunt Margaret walked in, her presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. "Sorry I'm late," Margaret said, joining the tense gathering. Anthony's family, who had only met Margaret once at my wedding, looked surprised. "What are you doing here?" Anthony's mother exclaimed, visibly annoyed. "It's rude to barge in like this. We're in the middle of something." Unfazed, Margaret replied, "You've heard about Anthony's divorce, haven't you? How would an outsider like you know about this?" Anthony's mother challenged. Margaret continued calmly, "I was informed by my brother earlier. I couldn't miss such an important moment for my niece." Anthony's mother shot back, "You're probably here to stop the divorce or for money. Are you still going to make accusations after seeing this?" Without missing a beat, Margaret pulled out a stack of documents from her bag and spread them out on the table for everyone to see. "I hired a private detective to look into this," she revealed. "It turns out Anthony has been cheating on Emma with multiple women. He hardly came home because of it, taking advantage of Emma's kindness and even asking her for money." The revelation left everyone in stunned silence, and the tone of the meeting shifted dramatically as everyone processed the gravity of Margaret's findings. I was deeply immersed in my university research, so when I did make it home, we spent time together sharing meals and going on trips. To the outside world, we appeared like any other married couple. "Say something, Emma," Anthony pleaded, his voice tinged with desperation. "You don't need to defend yourself," his father quickly reassured him, ready to take control of the situation. Margaret's unexpected intervention had brought to light the reality of my troubled marriage, revealing Anthony's deceit and the manipulation I had endured. This new information forced everyone, especially Anthony's parents, to reconsider their approach to the divorce negotiations. "It's not your fault," Anthony's mother hastily added, clutching the documents suspiciously. "These must be fabricated. Our Anthony would never do such things. He's a kind, outstanding son." "Kind to his parents, maybe," Aunt Margaret interjected sharply, her voice cutting through the tension. Despite her calm demeanor, her resolve was evident. She pulled out a photograph from the stack of documents. "I was at a hotel for a business meeting recently and saw Anthony there with another woman, looking quite cozy. I had the detective investigate Anthony as well, and the results confirmed my suspicions." Anthony's mother's face drained of color as she grabbed the documents to examine them closely. "What is this, Anthony? How long has this been going on? These are all lies, aren't they?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Anthony tried to snatch the documents back, denying everything, but it was too late. The seeds of doubt were sown. "You've been cheating on me? The car you wanted so badly was for her, wasn't it?" Anthony's mother accused, her voice cracking under the strain. No matter how much Anthony tried to soothe her, his mother was inconsolable. She stormed out of the house, tears streaming down her face, with Anthony stumbling after her, trying to explain. Amidst the chaos, Anthony blurted out, "Hey, wait, what about me?" and followed them, equally bewildered. The rest of us were left in stunned silence, but Aunt Margaret wore a satisfied smile, giving me a knowing wink. It was clear she had anticipated the dramatic turn of events and the necessary revelations that would unfold. After the tumultuous scene, Aunt Margaret confided in me that Anthony's parents had eventually separated. "You won't fall for such a terrible man again," she assured me, her tone protective yet empowering. "Let's focus on making you even more resilient. I'll teach you everything I know about grooming and self-care." Despite her busy schedule, Aunt Margaret made time for me, taking me out for meals and shopping trips. During this period, I soaked up a great deal from her, gaining a new perspective on self-care and confidence. Aunt Margaret's guidance not only helped heal my wounds, but also equipped me with the tools to build a stronger, more confident self. 1 year after my divorce, I made a life-altering decision to enroll in graduate school. This period marked a time of intense personal growth and transformation. One day, while waiting at a street intersection, I heard my name being called. I turned around to see Anthony, my ex-husband. He seemed genuinely surprised by my appearance and remarked on how much I had changed. At first glance, I barely recognized him. The man who once knew me as his unremarkable ex-wife now saw a woman who had blossomed into confidence and beauty. Meanwhile, Anthony's life had taken a sharp decline after his parents' very public and scandalous divorce. He had dropped out of graduate school after his parents, Kyle and Karen, withdrew their financial support amidst the turmoil he had caused. Struggling to cover his tuition and living expenses, the carefree lifestyle he once enjoyed was now just a memory. The women who were once interested in him had moved on, and his former social status had disappeared seemingly overnight. As Anthony was about to suggest we catch up, Jonathan, the man I was currently dating, approached us. His timing couldn't have been more perfect, signaling a clear demarcation between my past and the new chapter I was embarking on, one that no longer included Anthony. Nearby, a group of women couldn't help but admire Jonathan, wondering aloud if he was a model. Observing my brief exchange with Anthony, Jonathan gave him a polite nod and said, "It's okay, we're done here. Let's go," taking my hand confidently. Anthony remained rooted to the spot, visibly shocked as Jonathan and I continued on our way. My gaze stayed locked forward, concentrating on the road ahead and the bright prospects that lay before us. I didn't glance back even once as we departed.